Well, hello everyone, Justin Bell here on Drive to Win, presented by the Wynn Las Vegas and brought to you by Mobil One for the love of driving. Well, it was all about Carnival this weekend at the Brazilian Grand Prix Interlagos, which is why my guest today is particularly suitable. An IndyCar champion and Indy 500 winner, Gil de Ferran, will be joining us, who is also part of the mastermind behind McLaren's resurgence in the second half of the season. What a weekend, really, right? Interesting weekend. It's as though if they could throw the kitchen sink at every scenario that was going into play, they did, really. From the weather to the fans to what happened. I mean, just really a lot going on. I did enjoy the pre-grid. I've got to say, I've never been to Brazil, but my friendship with so many of the Brazilians like Gil, Elio, and all those guys has given me an understanding and appreciation for their absolute passion for life, their spirit of love and enjoying the moment. And certainly you could see it in the grandstands. So many fans with the legacy of mainly Ayrton Senna, obviously over the years. He's basically a religious institution in Brazil. And you could see it with the massive paintings on the side of buildings, people still carrying the Senna flag. And I mean, just amazing to see. And you also realize when you go down and see on the grid walk, Rubens Barrichello and Felipe Massa, and obviously two of the big Formula One names from Brazil, also making sort of a show on the grid. The pre-grid, I love watching the pre-grid show. I love seeing Martin Brundle walk along, but there's a downside to it too, isn't there? And maybe it's just us who on the inside of the sport get more aggravated by it than maybe you guys, but it's very hard to differentiate on the grid between, you know, people that are doing their job and the required celebrity that have adopted our sport just as you know, something that's cool to go and do. And I just felt for Martin when he was in the middle of his grid walk and he goes up to Machine Gun Kelly, who he just looked like a total spaz. And he was kind of rude, and I guess he couldn't hear him, but it makes you realize, no wonder there's no grid passes because it goes to all sorts of weirdos. But there were some other great moments, seeing at the front of the grid on pole position, as I put it on social media. She's not quite my goddaughter, but I have known her since she was a baby. And Gilles' daughter, Anna de Ferran, was the DJ at the front, right by where they did the driver announcements at the beginning. And I was so happy for her. Great vibe. She's doing really well. Obviously, into the weekend, one of those disjointed sprint race weekends, and Max won, and it was Lando, then Sergio. So that was great. Do we care? I'm not sure I care. I think I'm caring less and less about the sprints. I know they've got to do some work on them coming into next year and try and reformat them, because it does seem crazy that, you know, they go into part ferme, which is where they can't touch the car after just one hour of practice. And I think it really does have a knock-on effect, as we saw, you know, with disqualifications with the plank situation being too low on the bottom of the car a couple of weekends ago. And then you have, you didn't have that in this race, but definitely a compromise for some of the teams going into the main show. And I guess more is better. Is more is better. I'm not sure I'm a big fan of it, and I watch it and I'm just like, there's so much at risk and there's so little reward, because there's no such thing as driving a Formula One car slowly. There's no such thing as the team underperforming just because it's a sprint race. So everything goes into it, and I don't know. They got to get it right. Let me know your thoughts. But definitely, as they lined up on the grid for the main show on Sunday, it was a very dynamic, and the track is short, so it's a dynamic environment. And as they went round, as a foretelling perhaps of the chaos that was about to ensue, was when Charles Leclerc's Ferrari, as we now know, locked up, had a hydraulic and maybe more issue that put him in the barrier. the first thing the commentator said quite naturally was, oh, he must have, just like they really get it sideways, trying to warm up the rear tires, trying to put heat into them, and he went in the wall. But no, he didn't do that. You could see there was a puff of smoke just after the hydraulics went, locked him up, put him in the wall. And you got to say, he is right. What does he have to do to have a bit of luck? Terrible for them. And, certainly felt for them. But I don't know about you, but that opening 30 seconds, 15, 20 seconds of that race, if you're a betting man, you could not have bet on what was going to happen. I was out of my seat, excited to watch Lando start, just fabulous as he made his way to the front into second. But then all that contact, Albon and Magnussen, and then into Hülkenberg, and then the sort of Piastri, the indignancy of, is that even a word? Indecency? And he must have been indignant to be damaged by a car going backwards behind you as he hit the brakes. It obviously broke his rear wing. I mean, I don't think that's happened very often in motor racing history. So there's something new every time, which of course drove us to the red flag and allowed a reset, some work allowed to be done under red flags, obviously. And then we started the race again. And you really can miss the middle part of the race. I don't want to recap it. You watched it. But it was just extraordinary to see how the strategy played out on the tires, the pace of McLaren, the pace of Lando, what he was able to pull off, how he didn't really let Max extend the lead too much. It was always within a fighting window in case anything went wrong. He was right there to pounce. But let me give you my highlights, if you like, from the weekend, which were obviously McLaren and Lando Norris. He picked up 4 spaces at the start, 6-2 by turn 1. I know the pace had a little drop off in the middle, but it was so fast. I mean, 5 podiums in the last 6 races. Just the second highest point scorer in, 7 or 8 races. I mean, just amazing to see what they did. And I promise you, when McLaren give him a car to win, or the fate may, in these last 2 races, go against the Red Bull, who knows, probably unlikely. But if he does, he's right there. And how impressive his management of the car. And I love hearing him on the radio. He's so cheeky. But what a great momentum. And I'm looking forward to hearing what Gil says about that. Obviously, next on my list of standouts is, if I had to put on a postcard, would be Fernando Alonso and Aston Martin. And there was some sort of crazy rumor earlier in the weekend that he was up for the second Red Bull seat, which he absolutely squashed very aggressively, saying that the media responsible would pay, whatever that means. But I think it just shows his level of passion. He's committed to Aston Martin. He's part of their development. They're getting there. They were there earlier. They've dropped away. And obviously the result they had this weekend really showed how good he was. I mean, it's all about that tire management, the ability he was changing his lines just to minimize his exposure to the weakness of his car, as opposed to the Red Bull under DRS. It was a masterclass. And to hold on to third place by 53 thousandths of a second, and you try and measure that on a stopwatch, impossible to do. That was racing. It just was. I hope you were like me. I was so excited to watch, and it was anyway. It was a good way to end a motor race, which leads to Sergio Perez, who, there he is. Welcome back, Sergio Perez. Welcome back, Checo. You were fabulous this weekend, and yes, I'm sure there were people that would say you should be in second place, right behind your teammate Max. But I tell you what, in Brazil, you drove brilliantly. It was just watching. He was this tactician from the car. He just did it so well, and he was fast and aggressive. And you know what? He does need, the pressure is, Red Bull have never finished 1-2 in the drivers' championship, and that's what they want. And if he does that for the next 2 weekends, then that's pretty locked up, isn't it? Especially on the back of the unbelievably dismal weekend. Dismal is the right word. From Mercedes. That was the other side of the coin. Couldn't have been worse. And I was listening to, on the Formula One podcast, James Allison talking about it. They were just caught out by the pace of the car. They had no comprehension it was going to be that crappy. And, it's as he said very calmly, we need to analyze and review, which is already going on by the time everyone leaves the track. they got their rear tires very hot. They had a snappy rear end and they got a lot of understeer, which I'm telling you, as a driver, makes the car inconsistent. You can't premeditate what it's going to do. You can't get the car into a rhythm and you overwork your tires. And as we know, tire management is the key. So just a crazy weekend, little dull in the middle of the race, but the end certainly made up for it. And just, I think, to see the podium, see, Max up there, who was another just a masterclass from him. But to see Lando in second place, the elation he had, and he's pretty honest about it. This is as good as we got. And he was definitely the best of the rest. But that wonderful moment between Fernando Alonso and Sergio Perez when, Checo came up and gave him a hug, and he kind of whispered in his ear, and I wonder what he said. But I'm sure it was something along the lines of, "You are a genius." That was fun racing. So that was it. So it was a great race and definitely sets the scene as we're getting ready for the Las Vegas Grand Prix. The track is all set up. I posted a video last night. I actually got the track the wrong way. But yeah, this is Vegas. It's easy to get upside down. The grandstands are all in place. The signage is all going up. You can tell there's about to be a motor race. It's I walked over one of the walkways, looked down, and you can just... It kind of gave me an inkling of what it's going to be like when the lights go on. I just can't imagine. That must be so cool when they flick the switch. But it's definitely already, I mean, the Formula One circus will be arriving in town. All the drivers and everybody will be arriving probably by Tuesday next week. And I mean, everyone moved from Brazil here. All their support teams are already setting up. The garage complex is in place. A lot of the executives from the Wynn here went to look at the Wynn executive club, the drivers club there, and the view from it was amazing. They had one of the best spots. So I don't know, still last minute. If you want to go check it out, go to winlasvegas.com/experiences/F1. It is the Wynn here will be the epicenter of it all, and I'm so excited to be a part of it. And of course, Drive to Win, we're going to be doing shows all through the week. So stay tuned on social media and you'll see when we do it. My guest today, Gil de Ferran, he was the 2000 and 2001 Champ Car champion driving for Penske, and he was the winner of the 2003 Indianapolis 500. I cannot believe it was 20 years ago that we all celebrated with him on that amazing victory. Truly one of the cerebral drivers of his generation. He's an engineer by trade, and just a brilliant man behind the wheel, but also a brilliant man outside the wheel. He went on to have his own team with De Ferran Motorsports, and he was also, they won a lot of races in LMP1 in the Le Mans series during 2009. He never had a chance to race in Formula One, which is a pity because I think he should have. Maybe we'll ask him about that. He has had 3 times of dipping into the Formula One pool. He was with BAR as their F1 sports director back in the mid-2000s. Came back in 2018 as sporting director for McLaren. Stepped back from that, but now he's back in a very key role as part of Zach Brown's total restructuring of the management of Formula One, McLaren's Formula One team. And I guess you could say, by golly, it is working out, isn't it? He is a brilliant mind, but importantly, he is one of my best friends. So let's welcome Gil to Drive to Win. And thank you very much, my friend, for leaving that caipirinha or caipiroska to join me on the show.
Yeah, no, I'm good, Justin. It's great to see you. Well, I guess see you on the screen, I suppose, but it's better than nothing. And it's great to be here in Brazil, actually. Unfortunately, I don't have that many opportunities to come back here anymore. So it was nice to be here for the Grand Prix and staying a little bit after here to
seeing family and everybody.
Yeah, exactly. Mostly to see the family and some friends who I don't have a lot of opportunity to do that.
Yeah, well, I know how important as a, I've known you for so long, and even though you and all the other top Brazilian drivers have made Florida your home, that there's so much of your life that is Brazilian, right? The spirit of, I said at the beginning of the show, the spirit of passion for life, the passion for enjoying themselves. And tell me, was that what happened this weekend at the Grand Prix? It just seemed to be this ball of energy, and you must love to go back there and tap into that.
Yeah, it was frankly, it was a great vibe. You know, attendance, you know, as loud as normal.
Yeah.
It was nice to not only to see but to feel the passion that Brazilian fans have for Formula One and I would say for racing in general. So it was nice to feel that.
Yeah. And I imagine that all the drivers you could see on their social media, it's like they and I guess that's the beauty of social media. You get an insight into their regional immersion, right? They go to one place, they feel one thing, they do another. They go to Brazil and it was all about carnival and having a good time. Do you think Brazil, especially at this time of the year, is probably the right timing, right? To go there near the end of the year so they can enjoy the experience?
Well, to be honest, Justin, look, there's definitely that I think that the Brazilian fans provide to the Brazilian Grand Prix, which is very uniquely Brazilian, as you say. On the other hand, it's all business on the other side, when as we say, when the visor goes down, it's we have to perform on the racetrack. This was the last race of a triple header, so there was, shall we say, a lot of tired faces around the paddock, but. It's always nice to be back in Brazil. Unfortunately, it's not their last race of the year. I think it was for a while, but it's not the last race of the year anymore. So come Sunday night, we're already thinking about Vegas and then on to Abu Dhabi for the last one.
Yeah, well, let's talk about it. For you guys, in your role, Revive role back at McLaren, you guys must come away from a weekend like that going, this was so strong compared to where you were 6 months ago. I mean, the energy in the team, you can see it, led by Lando. Talk a little, before we dive in a bit, talk about how there's a rejuvenation within McLaren, because you can feel it, you can see it, the pit stops, everything.
Certainly, Justin. I mean, the team is doing a great job, and when I say the team, it's over 750 people, and what you see on the racetrack is the tip of the spear. There's a huge amount of effort that's gone behind, this upturn in performance. Certainly, I was looking at forgive me, I'm going to get it wrong, but I was looking at statistics. Stat that since Singapore, I think we were on the podium like eight times.
Yeah.
And that's obviously reflected on the points, not just for Lando and Oscar, but in the constructors championship, which is very important for us. But all of this to say, it's been a huge team effort. I think hats off as well to the drivers. Both Lando and Oscar are outstanding, really. I mean, there's no other way to say that they're very, very good drivers. So anyway, we're happy, but head down. It's still two to go.
Still two to go.
Focus on those.
Yeah, I mean, let's talk about those two drivers, because it's so different to Mercedes, or obviously over at Aston, where you've got such a veteran in the lead car, not lead car, effectively lead car over there. Here you've got two young chargers, and Lando, for his youth, is the team leader, effectively having, with that experience, and yet they're both so desperately young. What's it like for you with all, decades of experience, and you've dealt with so many drivers in your own team in sports cars and IMSA, and I know you're a student of watching other drivers. That was one of your strengths when you were professionally racing. I mean, these guys, you say they are good, but put into context the pressure that they have, Gilles, because it's more than you or I ever experienced.
Absolutely, Justin. Look, this is Formula One racing, right? So, and you're racing against, guys that won several world championships, and it's the top of the top, right? Is the creme de la creme that you're racing against. So the bar, as you say, is very, very high indeed. In fact, the last two races, the last three races, Austin, Mexico, and here in Brazil, I was reflecting after the race, and you know me, I'm looking at all the data, I'm watching all the videos and GPS traces, and the feeling I had after the race, those three races, those are the most fresh in my mind, is the level of driving is unbelievably high. Sometimes it may not look that way on TV, but these guys are pushing extremely hard. And, to win one of those races is, and beat these guys is not easy. So, as you say, for a guy like Lando, he's got a few years in Formula One now, but he's still very, very young. Be performing as he is really fantastic, and I can't say good enough good things about Oscar. Really, his first year in Formula One. And he's going to a lot of tracks that are extremely difficult, and some tracks very sort of tricky, in a way, like the one that we just had a Grand Prix here in Brazil, and he's having outstanding performances. Drivers are very good. What can I say?
They are so good.
Just very good.
and what I love about it, I actually thought about it 2 weekends ago, and when I was hoping to get you on the show, is you remember when you were driving and you could look at your own trace up against another driver and you go, my God, he does that there. Oh, I do that there. Oh, that's good. I'm good here. But you get the chance to look at two drivers objectively. And this is something that I think the average fan doesn't understand, is the ebb and flow of performance advantage on a track. No driver is faster everywhere than another driver. No driver loses in, everywhere. It's always an ebb and flow. Any insight you can tell us to not their driving styles, that's too much maybe, but what do you see as the differences between, Lando's experience where he knows how to use the car and Oscar's very calm, objective, seems ice cold almost approach? Is it fun for you to look at that? What do you learn when you look at their traces?
For sure. I mean, as much as what I like to say, every driver try to extend their menu, meaning you can drive a greater range of situations and circumstances to deal with however the circuit and so on and so forth. As much as every driver tries to do that, you always have your sort of underlying style, shall we say, those tendencies that you tend to default to. But one thing I was going to say when you were asking me that question that popped into my mind is it's interesting, right, Justin? Because there's sometimes there's an opinion that you should have a number one and a number two driver, and that's beneficial for the team, and so on and so forth. What I actually notice is by having two drivers that are unbelievably good, and very close to each other. To your point, even when one driver is quicker than the other one, there's a couple of corners here and there where when one holds an advantage. So what ends up happening is that they push each other up. Because you look at the corners where you're weak, and you try to learn something from your teammates. May perhaps adjust your driving a little bit, the way you brake, the way you accelerate, and so on and so forth, and you pick up a little bit of time. And the same thing happens with the other drivers. So when there's the level of, I think, collaboration that we see within McLaren, and two drivers that are like I said, performing extremely well, this not only helps them push each other up, but it also helps the team to understand the car better and take the car to another level. So I think we have a nice team.
You do have a nice team. Definitely, everyone thinks about it. The strongest pairing in a lot of ways. Okay, some questions that you can really help me answer. Like my producer, Jeremiah, we're always talking about things that happen at the start and what makes a great start. And, I sit there like we all do, pretending I've got my foot ready to go on the gas when the light goes out, right? I'm like, I think I did a better start than Max. But in my mind, can you just talk me through that? Even when you were doing IndyCar, I know there's rolling starts, but you remember the joy of standing starts. It was just such a great feeling. And Lando having a rocket ship start on Sunday, gaining all those positions. It is something that still matches man against man in that situation. But how complex is that starting sequence for them? Because what makes them have a bad start? You'd think with all that technology, a bad start was almost impossible. Can you just talk me through those last few seconds, what they have to do?
Well, I wish I knew it in detail, to be honest with you, but I know that they're going through a lot of different procedures. But one thing I can tell you is that it definitely is a good start relies not only on the team, but it also relies on the driver. Mm-hmm. So it's a nice mixture of should we say responsibilities, right? We need, as a team, we need to get our processes right, the adjustments just right, and the understanding of where the grip is, and so on and so forth, just right. But then the driver has to execute it. So it's really a good start. It comes down to a combination of good teamwork and great driver execution.
Yeah, I'm sure you can see them. I remember talking to, I was with the Ferrari drivers in New York 2 weeks ago, and they were just we had a steering wheel, one of their 2021 steering wheels they were giving to auction. And we were just looking at all the controls, and I asked Carlos, and I said, how familiar are you? He said, it's in my brain. I don't have to look at the wheel. I know all the sub-menus and everything. The complexity of that, Gil, the time, the speed of their processing from eyes to brain to hand to feet, and the seat of their bum, is so accelerated now and so evolved. Do you still think it's amazing the amount of controls they do on the steering wheel just watching? I'm going, holy shit. They're going between turns 2 and 3 at Silverstone. How the hell are they adjusting anything,
Justin, you and I are similar ages, right? We're old racing drivers. And so we remember those days that I think the most you had is probably a radio, somebody talking to you. And it was hard to drive a good lap when somebody was talking to you.
Yeah.
In fact, it was a common phenomenon, right? You probably remember if somebody starts talking to you at the wrong place, and it can really throw you off.
Yeah.
And it ceases to amaze me, to your point, the amount of things, let's call it the workload, right? That a modern Formula One driver has, making sometimes several adjustments per lap to optimize the performance of the car. And they're continuously adapting and pushing extremely hard, um, and without missing a beat. It's really quite incredible to do nowadays. It takes a lot of practice, takes a lot of training. It takes a lot of mental capacity, I think, to be able to do all those things, but not just execute them, but execute them well, you know, because it's easy to do all of these things in the steering wheel and so on and so forth and lose 2 or 3 or 4 tenths. You know, the difficulty is to do all of these adjustments and not lose any time. In fact, quite the opposite, sometimes gain time.
Yeah, no, I just love seeing it. All right, here's something I know about you, which is why sports cars always irked you. And Indy cars appeal to you because it's purist. You just go racing. The fastest guy or girl on the day will be the winner. It's what you do. That's why Formula One, as you said, always told me, is your ultimate place to be. I hope you share in all of our frustration with the fact that Formula One is, the pace of the race is determined by the performance of the Pirelli tires at any one given time. I know Pirelli are doing a lot of work on it. It's not a knock on Pirelli, but as my dad and I were just talking, you know him well, he calls a spade a spade. He's like, I just can't believe that the pace of a race in the middle, these guys are 5-6 seconds off in the middle of a race because of the tire deg and because of having to go to a different tire. How many resources are dedicated to that over the weekend? Because you have so many options, you have so many strategies. It must take up a mind-numbing amount of time.
I'm assuming you're asking me about how do we go about figuring out what's the best strategy for the race, right?
Yeah, I really am in a long-winded way. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, you know, before I go there, let me make a comment about this, let's call it tire management. I don't know, Justin. I always felt as a driver that was a necessary skill that you needed to have, even in the junior formulas, actually, that you needed to know pushing, say, for example, pushing in qualifying where you actually have no concern with time management. You only need to do one good lap versus pushing in the race. I always felt that there was a difference because you needed to be able to push continuously and not abuse the tires. Okay, some tires are more fragile than other tires, and this was true then, and it's true now. And you know, in fact, I recall the 2001 Indianapolis 500. Where I was, and this is an oval race, right? So I'm leading the race. I come into the last pit stop. My teammate, Elio, who you know well as well, gets by me in the pits. I knew I was faster. I was in a hurry to pass him after the pit stop, but I was following him so closely that I burned up my right front tire, and you know, 5 laps into the stint, really was nowhere anymore because I had no more right front tire. This is just to bring an example that happened, you know, a very visible example that happened in my own career. About tire management and over 22 years ago. So for me, that's always been a part of the sport, and certainly today in Formula One, understanding the pace of each type of tire. You know, every race you have the soft, the medium, and the hard. It varies depending on the racetrack, whether you bring the 3 softest one, the 3 hardest ones, or the 3 in the middle. Pirelli has 5 compounds, I think. Yeah, five different compounds. And you have to understand the pace, and you have to understand how fragile and how much they degrade over a stint. And and frankly, it's difficult to know those things very exactly because the track is always changing. So your experience and a lot of mathematics, shall we say, help paint that picture. But certainly when you go to a new track like Vegas, as we're gonna go in a couple of weeks' time, that is a very challenging situation because you don't know the surface particularly well. You've never been to the circuit. And it's very difficult to figure out these parameters in order to come up with a good strategy for the race.
Yeah, and you're right. Like I tell people that are getting into Formula One, I say, really study a car, follow a team, follow a driver, and you follow their strategy, and it kind of becomes much more interesting. So I know you very well, and I would love to have had a microphone on you, open mic, as the start of the Brazilian Grand Prix unfolded to the first corner, because it would have made even Netflix blush, I'm sure. But holy cow. Did that go wrong in a hurry? I mean, you've got Lando going down the left and you go, that is brilliant. Brilliant. Yeah. What a brilliant start. And you know what that feels like as a drive. You're like, yay. And then on the other side of the track, you have all hell breaking loose. My question, Gil, is you have so many, you obviously lay out so many strategies, but a red flag on the first lap. I mean, what? Give us context for the sort of, again, the resources, the team, the strategy team that kick in at that point, because it changes everything for the entire race.
No, for sure, Justin. And, my own emotions at the time was obviously I was extremely happy that Lando had a good start, but I really felt for Oscar, that got caught in an incident that wasn't, there was nothing he could have done there. And obviously there's always concern, right? Because it was a pretty hefty accident that happened on the start. And, once it's clear that no one was injured, which was great news. You shift your focus towards, okay, now what, right? Yeah. Thankfully, these situations are rehearsed. We have a team of strategists, there's some people in the UK. We have several meetings over the weekend. All of these scenarios are discussed, they're not predicted, but it's a scenario that is possible and therefore is wide and is well understood. So really, everyone goes into a set of coordinated actions to get prepared for when the race goes green again. And that's exactly what happened in Brazil. The team went. Part of the team was taking care of Lando, making sure everything was okay. He had the right tires, which tires we were going to start with. That was a decision in front of us. And on Oscar was trying to repair the car the best we could. Unfortunately, he lost a lap. But that was a focus at the time. Yeah.
I mean, obviously, and when you come to, as you said, when you come to Vegas, you don't have any data. You have nothing. So those, and being a street race with all the, and at night it could be pretty darn cold here, as you know, at that time of night. Based on a lot of simulator work. Is that how they do it? I mean, there's so much math involved now.
Yeah, I mean, we have some pretty sophisticated simulations. And what we call both offline and online. Offline is the computer driving, shall we say, the simulation, right? Online is when the driver is actually driving a simulator. and a McLaren with some pretty sophisticated equipment. The problem is, you know, with tracks that you've been a number of times before, you have a lot of information about the racetrack. You can do a lot of work because you've done a lot of laps. You a lot later to ensure that that everything correlates very well. Therefore, whatever results you get from your simulations and your simulator and whatever other studies you do, you have a high degree of confidence you're having good answers. The problem when you go to a track is that there's, as much as you try to reduce the level of uncertainty, you look at the track map and you try to do whatever, inherently there's a higher uncertainty and more unknowns. So it's always more challenging to go to a new track like this to try to get as well tuned as you can. Like even, for example, how bumpy the track is very hard to ascertain.
Yeah, and but everybody, like we always used to say when we went to a new track, right? It's the same for everyone. Everybody's going to be here, getting out there, and thank God you're going to have enough sessions. You're, you know, as you already brought up, we're the old guard, we're the old dogs, right?
Yeah.
How?
Well, speak for yourself.
No, I'm definitely the younger one. We don't even need to go there. We are actually the same age, everyone. But one of us has ridden harder. Talk about Alonso's drive, that last stint. As someone that I know you admire him greatly, what a driver. I don't think there's many drivers that could have pulled off what he did with an inferior car.
Yeah, listen, you know, we were talking earlier about the level of driving, right? And the many world champions that are in the grid. And, you know, there's no denying that Fernando, even at the tender age of, I actually don't know how old he is, but I think he's over 40.
Oh, yeah, 42.
42. I mean, he's having a fantastic season, you know, and I think this weekend again he proved why he's considered one of the best guys that has ever driven a Formula One car ever.
Yeah,
you know, and that's how I look at him. I had the pleasure to work with him both in Formula One and IndyCar before, and nothing but good things to say about him.
Yeah. Just really, it was just great to watch, and what a finish!
Magic, actually.
It was magic, and you know, you could just tell. You know, obviously, Perez has had such a crap time, and you know, just to see, there's something that I think also any sportsman in any sport knows: when you have a great race, a great fight, a great round of golf, a great whatever, it's you carry that spirit with you, same as when you did karting, and right. If it's a great race, it doesn't matter where you finish; you'd rather win. But you know you entered into something pretty epic. And that was so cool to see Checo, you know, just put his arms around Alonso and go, that was good, man. That was good.
It was a great sporting moment, actually, Justin, you know. People look at Formula One and they say, well, it's all about the car and stuff. And it's not. Of course, the car is very important. But it's a sport of human beings and machines together, you know. And for me, that was a great racing moment. It was great to watch. And it's great to see the respect that both drivers had for each other. And how they behaved both out of the car.
Yeah, so I loved it.
It's a great sporting moment, actually.
Okay, before we get to our little short question thing, I do want to ask you, because I've been asked, what do you actually do there?
I'm a consultant. Yeah, I'm a consultant. I work directly for Andrea Stella, who is the team principal. I met Andrea back in 18-19 when we were working together, trying to turn the team around between 18 and 19, and we got on very well together. So, I mean, I worked with him in every aspect of how to improve the performance of the team. Some technical stuff, some organizational stuff, some business stuff. You know, we look at everything. So I try to help Andrea and as much as I can. And to be honest, also Piers Thien, who is the COO. So let's just say we talk a lot.
Yeah.
About all sorts of subject. But in a way, is interesting, right? Because I was a racing driver. You know, people immediately go and think, "Oh, he's just trying to help the drivers." Frankly, that is, I hardly do any of that at all. You know, it's much more on how do we elevate the level of performance of with the team overall.
Well, and you got to, I mean, everyone's got to admit it. When Zach and Stella announced they're putting together this sort of over management team, and it was kind of slightly fractional. You know, you're going, well, this could be a disaster or it's going to be brilliant. And obviously it's been the latter. And congratulations to everyone, because you're obviously, I know you love systems, you love the complexity of our sport.
Yeah.
So you're obviously in the right place, Gil. That's just so good. Love it.
Well, thank you, Justin. And also, you know, hats off to Zach. You know, he's also been a great inspirational leader and put a great group of people together. So it's, you know, I was actually thinking about this the other day, right? Fun feels a little shallow, shall we say, right? Because it's very intense, but it's definitely very enjoyable. You know, it's certainly, at least for me, since I joined the team earlier this year, it's been a very enjoyable journey. Great, you know, great personal relationships, as well as good professional relationships too.
Perfect. Well, you've got 2 more races left, and the momentum is certainly that. I mean, if Max so much as squeaks in the seat wrong, one of your guys is there, and that is the best position you could hope for right now, isn't it? That you're just there. You're going to pounce the minute there's a mistake, or on the day you guys could be quicker here in Vegas. Who knows? You really could be.
Yeah. Listen, you have to say that Max and his team have been executing literally every single weekend. You know, they've been in every situation with hardly any mistakes the whole season. So no wonder he's having a record-breaking season. You know, in a way, I wish it was just a one-on-one sort of race. Sometimes they become that way, but you can't go into races, in my mind, just think of how best to execute those all the way from Friday, or even frankly before Friday. Yeah. But when the car turns the wheel on Friday, you know, to Sunday, you know. So full focus on execution. You know, drivers, like I said, drivers are great, you know, and if we execute well, hopefully we have a chance. But, you know, there's formidable competitors, shall we say, that deserve respect, I think, throughout the grid.
Oh, yeah.
So we can't rest. You know, we have to keep pushing. And trying to execute practice by practice into qualifying and then into the race. Every detail matters.
Wow. I love that. And you can see the pressure is on. It's exciting to watch. All right, it's time now for Mobil 1 for the love of driving. Gil, are Brazilians more passionate about soccer or Formula 1? Or is it impossible?
You know, this, can't remember, I think about 250 million people here. It'll be hard to interview everyone. But look, I don't know, Justin, it's impossible for me to say. I guess I have more contact with those that like racing more. So, but you have to say, you know, football or I guess extremely over here. But there's definitely a strong passion for motorsports, and particularly Formula 1 in this country.
Hard question. Are today's young drivers better than the generations before, or just better prepared?
I mean, we discussed that a lot, right? We even touched that earlier on. I think as the sport evolves, your different skills are required, and therefore you're required to develop different skills, right? When you and I are driving, knowing how to downshift here, you know, with your hand to not lock up the rears was a very important skill for you to go fast. Nowadays, it doesn't really matter. But you have to attain other skills like the ones we were discussing earlier, that you play with all these buttons, and you're still able to focus and take the car to the limit. So I don't, you know, look, every, I can't really answer that question other than there's been great drivers throughout history that knew how to master the skill necessary at the time to get the best results. And the best drivers are doing that, and they have always done that.
Yeah. Personally, would you rather have had to line up generationally against Senna, Schumacher, or Verstappen? I mean, the three titans of the last 30 years.
Yeah, thanks.
So you're kind of screwed out. You're screwed either way. But just from a personal point of view.
Well, it's interesting from a personal perspective. Actually, you know, I mentioned that before, that when I retired, one of the things that I missed actually was racing as Michael, because we're a similar generation. He was widely regarded as being the best driver in the world at the time, in the same way that people look at Max now. And I wanted to race against him.
Yeah.
Because you want to meet the biggest challenge, you know, that you can possibly imagine. So, you know, at the time I had those feelings that, you know, unfortunately, and our paths never really crossed in any meaningful way. But, you know, following the theme of you want to try to meet the biggest challenge, why not race all three at once? You know, it will certainly make you better.
It would certainly make you better. That's a great answer. This is a very, very hard question. But in the same, Mario Andretti once said to my dad, I would swap a Formula 1 win for a Le Mans win because I'd never won Le Mans. What of your victories would you have swapped to have won a Formula 1 race?
I can't just say, you know, I literally don't think in those ways. It's just not how my mind works. That's
well, you needed to do both. You needed to do both. You could take the Indy wins and then go to Formula 1. That would have been good. I'll go with that.
Yeah, please.
Okay, and my last question, very, very serious. Caipirinha or Caipirosca? Because I want to know if you've changed over the years.
Caipiroscas. Yeah. No, Caipiroscas for me are still better than the original Caipirinha.
Yeah, well, you see, those are the important. This is what Gil and my friendship has been based on for 20 years. So we know that we can do that together. Hey, listen, I'll see you next week it's here in Vegas. I can't believe the time has already come.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. It's going to be a great event, I'm sure. Certainly unique.
Certainly unique.
I'm certainly looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a great experience.
But I was going to say, how proud were you to look to the front of the grid and see Anna, your daughter, DJing at the head of the Brazilian Grand Prix? I was so excited.
Yeah. So it's funny, Andreas saw me before the race. I said, "What's wrong with you?" I said, "You're nervous." I said, "Yeah, very nervous." I was more anxious for her than I was for everything. But listen, she's doing a great job. Her career is really going. Is on this direction basically. So and she loves what she does, and it was great to see her there doing her thing.
I loved it. I love it.
You see that picture behind me? Sorry, on this side.
Yeah.
There she is.
Yeah, and she's not that size anymore. That's crazy.
And 3.
Yeah. So. All right, buddy. Thank you so much. So much. And I'll see you next week and enjoy a few days off.
Thank you very much. It's great talking to you, Justin. See you in a bit.
Hey there, race fans. Justin Bell here. If you're anything like me, driving probably means quite a lot to you, and not just racing, all driving. Nowadays, I'm sure you feel like I do sometimes, too distracted with texts, emails, work calls, and social media to get out there and simply enjoy the open road. I've always had a love of driving, and that's what Mobil 1 is all about. A reminder that even when life starts to feel too full of screens and routines, the ultimate escape is waiting patiently in your driveway. Mobil 1, for the love of driving. Well, thank you very much. Always great fun to talk to Gil. He's a great mind and some good insight onto how McLaren Formula 1 is working, getting ready for the Las Vegas Grand Prix. Talking about the Las Vegas Grand Prix, I know I mentioned it already, but I tell you what, this place has come alive. Walking down on the strip last night, looking up at the extensive truss system with lights literally every 10 feet. You know this place is going to lit up like the 4th of July. The track is all in place. The barriers are there. You can see the banners going up. It is going to be absolutely one of the most exciting races of the year. Just seeing the energy of the place come alive. Las Vegas doing a Grand Prix like no other. And of course, with the Wynn right in the center of it, you know there is so much reason to be here for it. I mean, lots of the drivers staying here. Top key personnel, activations from the red carpet all the way to the checkered flag on Saturday night. It's going to be something very special, and I know you can tell by the Formula 1 cars we have in here and just the energy of this place. The Las Vegas Grand Prix is going to be something, it's going to be a great way to round off the 2023 season, but still with another race to go after that. Anyway, before we get to Las Vegas Grand Prix, the Heineken Silver Grand Prix, we have the Las Vegas Concours. It is right here at the Wynn, and I'll tell you what, I went out on the golf course this morning and seeing the sphere at the end of the fairway, you realize that there is no other setting for a car concours like there is here. I mean, it's me and there's April Rosen ahead. We are going to be doing our hosting of the whole event. Celebrities are coming in by the dozen, and it's all happening 10 o'clock on Saturday, November the 11th. I mean, we're going to kick off with a Red Bull parachute jumping in, landing just a few feet away, right next to a Red Bull Formula 1 car. I mean, not in the car, but pretty darn close. And then we have 4 pillars to this event, really. We have the hypercars, we have the alternative fuels, we have the concept, and then we have the Concours d'Elegance. Truly an amazing lineup of cars that really do represent the entire history of the automobile. And we've come up with some really fun names for them. Normally it's just, post-war 50s and 60s American sports cars. We have the Judge classes, and then we have really fun things like Autobahn, 75 years of Porsches. We have Bella Machina. I guess you can work out what that is. The Dankeschön, which is Mercedes-Benz from the 50s and beyond. Europulence, which is European cars from the 20s to the 40s. And then you have things like Go Like Hell, which is the Shelby class. So many amazing batches of cars, all for your pleasure and entertainment. So if you are anywhere near Las Vegas this weekend on Saturday, please come by, because it's going to be a redefining of the concours world. Couldn't Can't wait for it. Also, we have a lot of manufacturers such as McLaren, Lamborghini, Bugatti, Ferrari, Lucid, Faraday Future. They're all here showing off their latest products. It's not just the past, it's also the future of the automobile on show here. Check it out at LasVegasConcours.com. I promise you, I can't wait. And it's a great way to kick off everything that's happening for next week. And including next week on Tuesday, there is the Netflix Golf Challenge, I think they're calling it. Some of the top drivers, Carlos Sainz, I think maybe Albon is involved, and they're all here playing against some of the top golfers from the PGA Tour right outside. Certainly going to make more of it a golf course than I would. But this is all happening right here. I mean, no wonder I'm not going to leave the place for 12 days. By the time we get to next week's show, we'll have talked to a lot of drivers, a lot of team personnel, a lot happening. We're going to be live doing shows all through the week, getting great content, putting it up on our social media. So remember, please share it and like it and comment. That really helps us, obviously, and lets us know that you're enjoying the show and give me your feedback. I'm going to say goodbye. I'll see you next week. Get ready for basically, they have the 12 days of Christmas. Well, it's the 12 days of Las Vegas and the Wynn as being the center of it. So looking forward to the Las Vegas Concours and the Heineken Silver Grand Prix. I'll see you next week.